Like a drummer in a good band, every great team needs a goalie. Someone you can depend on, someone who keeps the rhythm. And on today's edition of Locked On NHL, the top 10 goalies in the league.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Thursday edition of Locked On NHL. I am Nick Zararis, the host of Locked On Oilers. That's my good friend and co-host Hunter Hodes of the Locked On Penguins podcast, and we want to thank everyone that's making Locked On NHL their first listen of the day. Locked On NHL is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we've got your team covered every day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting the FanDuel website or the FanDuel app and win $300 if your first $5 bet wins. Okay, Hunter, my friend, today we are going to, as part of the lead up to Locked On's NHL 100 project, start with our positional power rankings. This week we are going to touch on goalies, and there's a lot to get to, so I will be as quick as possible in explaining my criteria. I went by the statistics. Hunter, a little more of his gut, a little bit more of his perception of these guys. I laid out their regular season stats and goals against, save percentage, goals saved above expected. I did the same thing for the playoffs. I averaged those two together to get a baseline rankings. And then based on service time, there are guys that Hunter has who don't have as many NHL seasons that I have a little bit lower down my list. Guys who, only one or two playoff appearances I have lower or off my list entirely. And then, guys who have won Stanley Cups or Vezina trophies get a little bit more of a bump in where I have them than just their statistics would have them. Hunter, my friend, who is the 10th person on your list? And if you want to walk me through your criteria before you get to it.
So yeah, I did do some of the stats, but as you said, did some of my gut, some of my perceptions, some of the eye tests. I just kind of tried to combine everything for this. But number 10, a pick that may surprise some people out there, but I am going to go Freddie Andersen to start this off for the Carolina Hurricanes this past season. The numbers were okay, 13-8-1, 2.5 goals against average, 899 save percentage. Obviously, he's been banged up a lot throughout his time in Carolina, but even during the 23-24 season, in 16 games, he had a 932 save percentage. A couple of seasons before that, he's at 922. His playoff numbers are mostly fairly good. Has a 913 save percentage throughout his career. This past season, the playoffs of the Hurricanes, he was 906. 2 years before that, he was 927. He gives the Hurricanes a good chance to win. It's not his fault when the Hurricanes go up against a team like the Panthers and they just can't score. So, Freddie Andersen, he's not going to go out of his net to try and score goals for the Hurricanes. So he keeps them in these games. He's pretty consistent. I do think the Hurricanes could maybe look to upgrade around him in net, but he's still a fairly good starter if he stays healthy. They just need to score more in the playoffs.
Agreed with you. I have Freddie Andersen 10th on my list as well. In the average of their careers, which is how I did this, Andersen's regular season stats were the 7th best. His playoff stats were the 5th best. I did ding him quite a few spots for the fact they've never been to a conference final, whether in Toronto they've never been to a Stanley Cup final, whether in Carolina or a conference final in Toronto. I think he is of the best in that tier of goalie, that 15 to 10 range, where if everything goes right for him, he's perfectly capable of being a top 10 goalie. I think the longevity, I know he's been dinged up a lot, but he's more than 10 years into an NHL career at this point. His statistics really do tell a good story. He's put together a really nice NHL career, and I know he doesn't have a reputation as being a big game player, but a 915 save, 256 goals against for his career in the regular season, and then a 914 and a 240 in the postseason. Those are really strong numbers. And I think Carolina runs into the problem that most teams have when they're defense first, that they don't score enough. And it does come down to the goalie. And Freddie just isn't on the caliber of some of the guys higher on this list to be able to steal these games 1-0, 2-1. And that's not a knock against him. There are plenty of goalies who wish they were as good as Freddie Andersen. So I will go next and we'll alternate this back and forth. Coming up at number 9 for me, I have Darcy Kuemper, somebody who has hung around in the NHL for a while, who's bounced around teams, stints with a number of teams, starting very, very hot as of late in LA. Great season last year, won the Cup in Colorado a couple years back. Somebody who, in the right environment, is capable of elevating his game to a very high level. His regular season stats aren't remarkable, but the simple matter of the fact is he's been consistently upper echelon, upper half of the league for a long time. He does have that cup from his time in Colorado. He's shown the ability to bounce back from a tough season in Washington, losing that job to Charlie Lindgren, becoming the starter in LA this past year, and getting down ballot Vezina votes for what his performance this year with the Kings. So I would feel pretty good. You know, if I can't have some of the guys up the list like Shesterkin, Sorokin, etc., if I have Darcy Kemper and my team is pretty good, I'm in a good spot.
I do like that one. I was considering him. I kind of had him at the end of it around 11th or 12th. For me, for number 9, I have Philip Gustaffson of the Minnesota Wild. I know, Nick, he hasn't been in the league for that long, only 169 games to date since making his debut during the 2020-2021 season. But 2 of his last 3 seasons, he's been at 914 or better. This past season, he was at 914. In 22-23, he was at 931. He was one of the best goalies in the league that season, even though he only played in 39 games. Still, 931 save percentage, that's fairly good. You look at his playoff numbers as well, and they've been solid in both seasons that the Wild have made the playoffs in 11 playoff games. Again, very small sample size. His save percentage is 916. His best during that time was 22-23 when it was at 921, had a 2.33 goals against average. He rises to the occasion for the Wild when they make the playoffs. And I think the more sample size that he gets, I think the better that he's going to be. Like, this is a pure number 1 goalie in my eyes. I know he's not in your top 10, Nick, just to tease it for you going next, but he's number 9 for me. I think he's only going to get better.
I think something I'm curious to see, and I need to do more research on this, but guys who are in the league longer, their goals saved above expected typically lowers. Bob and Vasilevsky's career goals saved above expected aren't that impressive where you compare that to someone like Shesterkin and Sorokin, who only have 4 or 5 seasons apiece. Their numbers are a lot higher because they haven't been in the league as long. So I will definitely report back on that and do some research. Who you got next?
So next up for me, number 8, I have Jeremy Swayman. So I was going to have a bit higher last season, though, Nick. I think it was just really tough.
He didn't have a training camp. He didn't have a preseason. That's the thing. He came in cold, and he just didn't look right.
Right. He was dealing with a contract situation, barely even participated during camp in the preseason. And then he comes into the regular season, and you could really see that he was missing those reps that he did not get during camp and a little bit of the preseason. I know, Nick, a lot of the starters don't really play a lot during the preseason, but you still want to give your starting goalie at least a game or 2 during the preseason. He didn't really get that much. This past season, he had 58 games, 892 save percentage. That is the worst save percentage of his career. But you look before that, Nick, 916, 920, 914, 945. I mean, this has been one of the best goaltenders in the league. And I moved it down a little bit just because of this past season, but I think he can get back to that level this upcoming season, even though I don't think the Bruins are going to be that good. His playoff numbers, 20 games. Nick, he has a career 922 save percentage in the playoffs.
He was great for them the last time they made the postseason. They ultimately lost to Florida, of course, but he was outstanding. They just, again, could not score enough.
Right, exactly. And he's going to be on Team USA. In my opinion, I think he'll be one of the options. I don't think he's going to start over someone like a Connor Hellebuyck. I think he's going to be given the net first, and stay tuned for Connor Hellebuyck coming up a bit later on in the show. But he is good enough to be on Team USA, and he will, again, to me, he'll be on the roster. But I have him at number 8. I think with another really good season, unlike this past season, I think I might move him even closer to the top 5.
So I will round out our first segment with somebody who's been around a long time, someone who's got a lot of wear and tear, someone who has been an upper echelon guy, doesn't have a Vezina yet, and that's UC Saros, somebody who's put together a really solid NHL career on not the best of teams. We've definitely poked our fair share of shots at Barry Trotz, and look, I think if you gave them a mulligan, they might try and orient that team towards a younger cohort. But Saros has been one of the better goalies in the NHL for a long time. And I just think he's going to get lost to history, for lack of a better word, because he doesn't have the individual awards. The Predators aren't going to win a Stanley Cup. But this is somebody who's been really good for a long time. And the numbers aren't incredible because he does have some. Last season was rough for his goals against average. But by and large, this is someone you would feel good about as your your starter, especially if you put him in a more favorable environment. He's been a fringe Vezina guy a couple times, someone who arguably should have won it a couple years ago. And that'll wrap up our first segment, but be sure to stick around for 7 through number 1 on our lists coming up next after this quick break. The NFL season starts tonight. The Eagles and Cowboys, without Micah Parsons, by the way. And FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new FanDuel customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use on the FanDuel app. I love using FanDuel because it makes it so easy to get in on the action, whether it's before kickoff, once the game starts with live betting, or if you want to cook up a same game parlay with your friends for a squad ride, FanDuel makes it happen. So FanDuel has one question for you. Are you ready? Download the FanDuel app or visit the FanDuel.com website to get started. It's FanDuel.com to place that first $5 bet for a chance at $300 in bonus bets. We here at Locked On have an important request. We want to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertisers. Go to lockedon.com/survey to get started. Everybody who completes the survey will be entered for a chance at one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. That's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can find the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for helping us at Locked On Out. Hunter, it is your turn.
Yeah, so number 7 for me, Jake Ottinger of the Dallas Stars. One of the most consistent goalies in the NHL this past season. 36 wins, 2.59 goals against average, 909 save percentage. If you look, 22nd in the league in goals saved above expected with 10.7 behind Dustin Wolf, Mackenzie Blackwood, Linus Ullmark, and a whole bunch of others. But when he's on, there's not many goalies that are better. He's also going to be an option for Team USA. I still think Connor Hellebuyck is going to get the net, but I think Jake Ottinger is going to make Team USA at the Olympics. He's not on our list, but I think Thatcher Demko will also have an opportunity to make Team USA potentially. I think he was right on the outside looking in, but Ottinger, man, I still think Magnick, we've had this discussion on the show, his effort against the Flames a few years ago where he was just making save after save in that game 7. Like, I felt so bad for him after because he was keeping the Stars in that game the entire freaking hour. It was probably one of the best series I've ever seen a goalie play against another team throughout my lifetime. He was just unbelievable in that series, especially in that game 7 against the Flames. I really like how consistent he has been throughout his career. Again, you look at just the save percentage, 911, 914, 919, 905, 909. He's a career 912 goalie. And in the playoffs, he's right at 912. That's above league average. So the Stars.
Well above.
Yeah, 100%. So for the Stars, it's for them, I think, getting maybe a bit of a better matchup in the playoffs. So, maybe not going up against a red hot Oilers team. So Ottinger, he gives them a chance to win on a nightly basis. And, with how consistent he's been, I know he doesn't have a Vezina. He deserves to be, right outside the top 5, but still in the top 10.
For sure. I have Ottinger coming up a little later in my list. Next up for me, I have Ilya Sorokin, who, of everybody on this list, has the single best season of anybody. He had that 151 goal saved above expected season on that very mediocre Islanders team. The Vezina went to Linus Ullmark, who was on the best team. I still feel like that's one of the worst voting results we've had in a while when it comes to the Vezina. Sorokin is basically the difference between the Islanders being a mediocre team and a lottery ball team. Of course, this past year, they made a conscious effort. They traded away Brock Nelson, and they are definitely going to be in the mix for a top 5 to 10 pick this upcoming season. Sorokin has flashed at the highest possible levels. He's made some of the most dynamic, explosive saves I've ever seen. I still think about the one save he made, reaching back across with his paddle after losing the net and sweeping it back out. This is somebody who, when they're on their game, is capable of being the best goalie in the world. And this is the peril, when you're someone like him, you're UC Saros, even if you're on a mediocre or a bad team, because it's so hard to get a good goalie, teams are going to ride it out. They're going to be bad with you and say, well, if we have him, we have a chance every night. And it requires 45 saves every night if you want to win 30 games. And that's it's tough sledding. It's a tough way to make a living, but Sorokin's got that long-term extension. And I think the Islanders can absolutely get back into the mix a year or two from now. And at that point, Sorokin won't be that old, but this is clearly one of the best goalies in the world and someone who, when he's on, is very fun to watch. I'll go real quick with mine because Jeremy Swayman's next for me, and we already talked about him briefly in your segment. Swayman's playoff numbers are incredible. I think the fact he was so good in that tandem with Ullmark that the Bruins looked at it and said, okay, yeah, you won the Vezina, but we like that guy better. I think that tells you a lot about the perception of Swayman. He had the really good run in the World Juniors when Team USA won the gold medal, made a bazillion saves in that gold medal game against Canada that went to overtime. This is someone I feel is very much going to be in the mix to start for the Olympic team in 2030, somebody who I think could be the best American goalie in the world once Connor Hellebuyck falls out of his prime, if that ever happens, and someone I think who's going to try and drag the Bruins to respectability as much as that team is kind of bare bones right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Next up for me on my list, though, number 6, Nick, Ilya Sorokin. I know you just talked about him quite a bit. Sorokin, I think if he, for this past season, it was fine. I don't think it was as bad as some Islanders fans made it out to be. It's very weird, by the way, how some Islanders fans talk about him. You'd think he was one of the worst goalies in the league. When you see some of the takes coming out of Long Island, it's like, you guys don't know how good you have it. When this guy's on, he's arguably the best goaltender on the planet. I just have him at number 6 just because, for this past season, 30 wins, 907 save percentage, 2.71 goals against average. He just wasn't as consistent as he has been earlier in his career. Because, for example, Nick, he's a 924, 925 goalie when he is, in his prime. He was a 918 goalie the first season of his career. I still remember when the Penguins played the Islanders in the playoffs during that 2020-2021 season. He was one of the biggest reasons why they won that series, in my opinion. He was unbelievable. He finished those playoffs with a 922 save percentage. A couple years later in 22-23, he was at 929. I know he didn't really play that much during 23-24, but still, this is a goaltender that when he is on, he's given the Islanders the elite goaltending in the playoffs and elite goaltending during the regular season. I think if, for example, you got to see Russia in the Olympics for next year, he would definitely be one of the goalies that would have a decent chance of starting. It's funny, Nick, we could talk about numerous Russian goalies where if you were to say start that goalie in the Olympics, if they were there, I don't think anyone would argue against it just because of how stacked, the league is right now with Russian goalies. But Sorokin, just how calm he is, how poised he is, the movement that he has, he is a ton of fun to watch when he's on. Again, have him just outside the top 5 right now, but he can easily get back in the top 5 next year if he has another really good season. Again, I don't think Islanders fans understand just how good they have it with him.
No, and that's the thing. And this is something as a brief aside. I know we have a lot to get to. When you have a great goalie, it's like having a really good quarterback. The expectation is if you have one of those guys, you're going to win because of that position being able to elevate the team around them. But there's only so much you can do. There's only so much a great goalie can do if the environment is bad. You think about the guys the Islanders were running out there on defense last year. You had children like Isaiah George. You brought Tony DeAngelo back from Russia. Neither of those guys are particularly adept in their own zone. And the fact that Sorokin is still considered one of these goalies is a real testament to his ability. And I do hope we get to see him in some big games. I know Russia won't be in the Olympics next year, but get the Islanders, not even in the playoffs, just playing relevant hockey. And then real quick, speaking of Russian goalies, next up for me, I have Sergei Bobrovsky, somebody whose stats are fine, I have him 5th overall. His regular season stats were 12th of the 15 or so guys I had considered. His playoff stats are 8th. He has one great playoff run in him the year they lost to Vegas in the Stanley Cup final. He was the driving force. He was the reason they got there in 2023. He's been largely good. He's been able to play slightly above his means, his environment, the last 2 postseasons when they've beaten Edmonton. He's been able to outplay Stuart Skinner again, not asking much, but Bobrovsky is kind of at the waning stages of his prime. I wouldn't consider him to be an elite goalie anymore, but the combination of reputation and the playoff performances, that gets him over the hump for me, even though the stats themselves aren't all of that impressive.
Well, stay tuned for mine because I do have Bob a little bit higher on my list, and I'm going to try to go against Nick a little bit on that one. But number 5 for me, I do have UC Saros. I know this past year wasn't very good. But to be fair, the Predators were also horrendous this past year. So there was really only so much that he could do. 896 save percentage is the lowest throughout his career so far, outside of, one game during 15-16 where he had 870, but I don't really count that. But in terms of a full season, that's the lowest save percentage throughout his entire career. Other than that, he's been at, 906, 918, 919, 927, 925. He's been one of the most consistent goalies in the league. I know he's not very big, only 5'11", about 180 pounds, but it doesn't matter. Like the movement that he has in the crease, Nick, makes up for his lack of size, if you will, since he's not even 6 feet. Again, some people put that as a knock on him, but the fact that he is this good despite being a little bit undersized goes to show how elite he is as a goalie. I would say when he is on, he is an elite goaltender in this league. So I have him there at number 5, a little bit higher than you, but I think outside of this season, he deserves to be there.
We're going to take our second and final break. We'll round out the rest of our top 10s right after this. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does all of the heavy lifting. You can link your accounts in minutes, see clear data visualizations, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money, and you'll never open a spreadsheet. I, like most people in my generation, don't do the best of job of putting money aside, whether that's my rainy day fund, saving up for a big purchase, or worrying about retirement. And Monarch has helped me put actionable goals in motion. Do not let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. One more time, it's 50% off your first year subscription at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out on this Thursday edition of Locked On NHL, making it their first listen of the day with Hunter and I. Next up, you already hit on Jake Ottinger, but real quick, Ottinger's got really good numbers, man. He's got the second best regular season numbers for his career average of everybody I looked at. 7th best playoff numbers, that one playoff run. He had more goals saved above expected in that Calgary series than Darcy Kemper did the whole year, and Colorado won the Stanley Cup final that year. Kemper played 4 times as many games, and Ottinger had more goals saved above expected in just those 7. One of the more interesting goalies, I feel like a lot of people, and I would put myself in this camp, expect a little bit more from him, and that might not be fair. Being a top 5 goalie in the NHL is already pretty good, but I feel like if he wants to push for a Vezina, he needs to have one of those signature defining seasons, the way Sorokin did a couple years ago, the way Shesterkin did the year he won, and I think that's within range for him, and I think that's why there are people who want a little bit more from him. Not that he's played poorly, but we all keep hearing he could start for Team USA, he could win a Vezina. All right, let's see it. And I think that's what's exciting about someone like Ottinger, who's still kind of in the early stages of writing their story at the NHL level.
Right. I think it's still going to be tough for him, though, to start for Team USA again, though, Nick, because Hellebuyck is right there. And again, we'll get to Hellebuyck a little later, and we'll talk about, his play in big games and all that stuff. But unless Hellebuyck really craps the bed to start the Olympics next year, I'm just not sure that he's going to get a chance to play for Team USA at the Olympics. But hey, we'll see. Number 4 on my list, I was going back and forth between 2 of the Russians here, Vasilevsky and Bobrovsky. I was really trying to figure out which one do I want to have at 4 and which one do I want to have at 3. So by process of elimination, you guys probably know who I already have at number 1 and number 2. But for this one, I am going to put Andrei Vasilevsky here at 4. Yeah, I know people are going to say it's recency bias for Sergei Bobrovsky. And to an extent, you might be a little bit right. But I have also looked at Bobrovsky's entire career, multiple Vezinas, multiple Stanley Cups, the way that he has also been insanely clutch in the playoffs. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I also have Andrei Vasilevsky as a first ballot Hall of Famer. He has a Vezina. He has the Stanley Cups. He's a .917 career goalie. This past season, he was at .921. You look at the season prior, though, he was only at 952 games. Very uncharacteristic season from Vasilevsky, but he more than bounced back this past year, finished second in Vezina voting. So again, even though he is 30 now, when he is on, I mean, this is still one of the best goaltenders, if not to some people, the best goaltender on the planet. It was really, really close for me between Bob and Vasilevsky, but I put Vasilevsky at 4 here. Again, great in the playoffs, great during the regular season, has the Vezina. When he gets those crazy eyes going in games, you know he's absolutely locked in. There's not many goalies that I would take over him for like a 1-game elimination. Who would I want? He'd be right up at the top of that list, but I have him at number 4.
So you said Vasilevsky. So is Bob 3?
Bob is 3. Yeah. So I guess we can just get into that now. Okay. Bob, obviously he's won the last 2 Stanley Cups. He was absolutely outstanding the year prior to that in the 22-23 season to take the Panthers to the Stanley Cup final before they lost to Vegas. Nick, he has multiple Vezinas throughout his career. I know his playoff stats were a bit spooky during his time in Columbus a little bit, but as I said to you before we started recording, he was playing some dynamite Penguins teams, man, where he was just getting no help whatsoever. And now you see him on a stacked Panthers team, you know, he's able to do his part. He's able to help out. He's able to make a lot of these big, timely saves. And if I could do it as a 3A, 3B, I would do it like that for Vasilevsky and Bob. I hope that's not a hot take to some people. But I think, again, for a little bit of recency bias, yes. But throughout their entire careers, which have both been pretty long so far, I would give a slight edge to Bob with his, you know, a couple of Vezinas, the playoff numbers, especially these last few seasons. But you can easily make an argument for Vasilevsky. It's not a hot take at all.
I have Vasilevsky 3rd on my list. I think Vasilevsky's track record, his resume, his counting stats aren't incredible. He's 6th in the regular season, 4th in the postseason. He's got the 2 cups. He has the reputation of kind of being the cold-blooded. Once he gets the crazy eyes that are all the way open going, you're not putting one past him. And the thing about someone like Vasilevsky on those Tampa Bay teams was he wasn't the best player on those teams, and he didn't need to be. And that's what made him so terrifying. You knew if Tampa Bay scored 3, you were probably losing that night because he was not giving up 4. And as somebody who has looked down the barrel at Vasilevsky at the other end in one of those do or die games, it feels inevitable. It feels like there is nothing you can do to beat that guy when he's on his game. And it's really demoralizing. You know, it's one of the most frustrating feelings in sports. It's not quite Brady coming on for the 2-minute drill, but it's really close when it comes to the pantheon of doomed sports fates is do or die game, Vasilevsky down on the other end. And the individual numbers are pretty good. They're not crazy. Hellebuck's got better regular season. Shesterkin has better playoff. And hint, those are my next 2 guys. But I really am impressed. He bounced back nicely last year, which you didn't mention, coming off the back injury the year prior, where we might have been asking ourselves, is he done being an elite goalie? And last year, he put together a really nice regular season, was one of the reasons, frankly, I picked Tampa Bay to beat Florida in the first round, stupid as that was this past year. All right, number 2, Hunter, who you got?
Connor Hellebuyck, number 2. Yeah. So I think everyone knows who my number 1 is now. We'll get to that in just a second. But Connor Hellebuyck is at number 2. His regular season numbers, Nick, disgusting. Like lights as out. Always. I mean, this past year, I don't like looking at wins that much for a goalie. But I mean, the guy was 47-12-3 this year. Again, I don't like looking at it that much, but that was ridiculous. Like I had to mention that for this past season. Goals against average of 2. 925 save percentage. He led the league in goals saved above expected with 39.6. He was the best goaltender on the planet this past year. However, I still need to see more from him in big games. It's been stinky. You know, you got the LeBron meme here where he's walking on the court, Nick, and he's like, that's stinky. That's what we have gotten from Connor Hellebuyck in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That needs to change. The regular season numbers, again, they are elite, man. I got to see it in the playoffs. I got to see it at the Olympics, especially. Come on, man. Like
he was all right at the Four Nations. He was all right at Four Nations. I'll give him that. He was better there.
Yes.
Yeah, he was fine there. His playoff numbers are bad. Just objectively, they're bad. He's like a 902 save. His goals against is almost 3. He had some of the worst playoff numbers of any goalie I considered on this list. Of the 10 guys he on my list that we're talking about, he does have the worst playoff numbers. he has failed to even give the Jets a baseline. You know, if he were just good as opposed to great, the Jets probably have another conference final appearance in the last couple of seasons. And look, goaltending is volatile. It's very environmentally based, but the Jets have given him reasonable chances, especially this past year. I could have made an argument they could have gone through. They could have beat Dallas with slightly better goaltending. They could have beat the Blues a little bit easier with better goaltending. And that sets the stage for me to glaze Shesterkin for a minute here. This is the best goalie in the world. I have no hesitation or reservation in saying that. Since he's entered the NHL, he has the best regular season.
Don't be biased because you're a Rangers fan. I'm just messing with you, man.
He has the best regular season numbers and the best playoff numbers of any goalie since he entered the NHL. Go back and look at the underlying numbers from the Carolina series 3 years ago, the Tampa Bay series they lost from 3 years ago. 2 years ago, excuse me. Now go look at the numbers in that Florida series, the goal saved above expected, what Florida was doing to the Rangers, 110 scoring chances in games, and they were scoring one goal. When this guy is locked in, not even with a shotgun are you scoring on him. You're not getting a puck past him when he's in the zone. And it is both the best feeling in the world, and it's the worst because you know he's the only guy who's showing up in these games. I have to hinge Shesterkin's reputational success on guys like Mika Zibanejad and Vincent Trocheck trying to outplay Sasha Barkov and Sam Reinhart. I'm asking an elephant to swim. You know, they could do it, but they're not going to do a good job. Shesterkin is a pleasure. He is a treat. And for anyone who listens to and looks in at the large consensus of casual Ranger fans and bad media people who only looked at the boxcar stats, Shesterkin faced the most shots on goal of any goalie in the NHL last year. He was 7th in goals saved above expected in the regular season. He literally could not have done anything else more to help that team last year. They were doomed. And there are a lot of people who look at that and say, well, if he's so good, he's got to elevate. He can't score. He cannot score the goals too. This is the best goalie in the world. The numbers back it up. The playoff performances back it up. I feel like he will have been robbed if he only wins one Vezina in his career, but they did Lundqvist the same way.
Well, I think he'll also be robbed if he don't win a Stanley Cup, Nick, and we saw that exact thing.
That's not happening. I've long resolved that's probably not happening.
It really, dude, it really is crazy. You got your version of Favre to Rodgers with Lundqvist to Shesterkin, and the Rangers are still just trying to do the same thing they did with Hank, where they're trying to rely on the goalie to do everything. And they're like, we'll have the rest of our team be good, but not be elite. So you said it all when it comes to Shesterkin. I think he's the best goaltender on the planet as well. I don't really look at the record this past season or the save percentage and think like, this is going to be the start of a decline or anything like that. He was still at .905 this past season, despite playing on an awful Rangers team, especially a team that could not defend to save their lives in their own zone. The most rattled I think I've seen Shesterkin, and Nick, of course, I'm going to bring this up. The Penguins lost a series, but I don't think I've ever seen Shesterkin that rattled before the Rangers came back to win that series.
It's the air horn at PPG, brother. I hear that on TV, and that starts making my brain rattle.
The Penguins were making him look like a peewee netminder, especially in those two games in Pittsburgh. But even throughout the rest of that series, the Penguins were scoring 3-4 goals on him a night. It felt like, again, that's the most rattled I think I've seen him during his career. Other than that, I mean, this guy has just been locked in and night out. Even after that against the Penguins, he's been really, and I mean really good. I mean, this past season, you mentioned 7th in goals saved above expected, despite playing again on a horrendous defensive team. I think if I need one goalie to win a game right now, Game 7, I am probably taking Shesterkin. It's close, but I would probably take him. Nick, here's a question though. Say Russia was in the Olympics. Do you have Shesterkin starting that first game, or do you have Vasilevsky?
I think they would pick Vasilevsky or Bob. I think it would be reputation based. And that's generally how the Olympics go. All three of them, Sorokin, all 4 of those guys are reasonable answers to pick who you would have start in that game. But I think they would go based on reputation to Vasilevsky or Bob. I would probably pick Vasilevsky between him and Bob if I had to start a game, but none of those guys are a poor choice at all.
Yeah, it's very close for me. I think based on recency bias, the choice would probably be Bob. But I think if you combine everything else, it might be a little bit different in my opinion. But just based on recency bias, it would be Bob. But Igor, man, I think he's going to win another Vezina or 2. He's going to take the Rangers to the playoffs. with the way they're
not a whole lot more than that, but
I don't think they're going to be going that far. Even though Mike Sullivan's the coach now, you know me, man. I love Mike Sullivan. I think he's going to get more out of that group. I think he's going to get a lot out of Shesterkin as well. This will be the first time that Sullivan has a goalie like Shesterkin throughout his career. I'm not really going to compare him to 2016, 2017 Matt Murray. Let's be real here. 2016, 17 Matt Murray was awesome, Nick. He's not Igor Shesterkin. Yeah. So I think Sullivan's going to get a lot more out of this team. Just don't think it's going to be enough to have them go on some deep runs. But Shesterkin, for me, he's number one right now.
And truly special talent, someone I'm very grateful I get to watch play for my favorite team. All right, that'll do it for today's edition of Locked On NHL. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, at 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. Please, please, please hit us with a subscription over on YouTube. Let us know who you like as the best goalie in the world down in the comments. Be sure to do the Locked On survey for a chance at one of those $100 gift cards. And stay tuned for the rest of the positional rankings and the NHL 100 project, which are all coming in the lead up to the start of the NHL season. Hunter and I will talk to you guys real soon.